The glaze for this show needs to be studied because it is insane what is going on right now. People online are making videos about The Boys Season 4 and they try to sneak in negative feedback here and there, but The Boys glazers are not having that shit one bit. They got their pitchforks out and Homelander's cock in their mouth ready to yell, "Get out!" The Boys Season 4 is officially over and it is a very uneventful season. I mean, barely anything happened. And just because shit happened in the final episode doesn't cover up for the entire rest of the season doing jack. I remember when episode 6 released, I was talking to one of my friends and he brought up that he can't believe that there are only 2 episodes left, and I thought he was lying. I wasn't paying attention to how many episodes have been released, but it just felt like nothing has happened yet, and we were only on like episode 4 or 5, at least that's what it felt like. This was the season for filler. This was a half of a season worth of content stretched to fill a whole season. The moment that Homelander told the 7 that they're now going to be gods instead of glorified celebrities, which was like episode 5, the next episode after that should have been what took place in this final episode. Instead, we got this weird web weaver episode that was just 1, a waste of time, and 2, just a bad episode. That brings me to my other point. The boys are overdoing it now with this edgy humor. Like, of course, Web Weaver's web comes out a hole near his ass, and of course Tech Knight has a sex dungeon. That Black Lives Matter joke was actually funny though.
100 million to Black Lives Matter.
No, not those people! Fuck you!
The gross, edgy humor in this season wasn't funny. It was just gross and unnecessary. In the earlier seasons, it seemed like they had it figured out where they walked that line perfectly of it being gross and funny. But now it seems like they forgot. I already know what a bunch of people are gonna call me. They're just gonna call me soft and be like, well, what do you expect? It's The Boys. Yes, I've seen all the other seasons and liked them and also had no problem watching those gross scenes. But magically, I just started hating them now. No, what actually happened is they just got worse. This type of humor is very hard to pull off. You need to make sure it's not just gross, but also funny. It looks like now that the writers got all those good reviews about the edgy humor, it being funny, and it's so good that it finally got to their head and they started to think that they could just do whatever. Like the sauna scene with the guy that can make clones of himself. I don't think I can describe what he was doing in that scene without YouTube telling me to get out, but I'll try. So that shit was just gross and it wasn't funny. It was just uncomfortable to see. Like, why couldn't he just be jerking off? Why? I'm just a little boy. Another thing that was annoying with this season was it was just a season of questions and absolutely none of them got answered. A-Train's redemption arc, if this is the end of the character of him just running away, this is the worst redemption arc I have ever seen because he hasn't really done anything, so what is the redemption? But I'm guessing that he'll come back next season. Ashley getting her superpowers was not answered. It's gonna be for next season. What happened to Ryan after he left? Gonna be answered next season. There's no answer for this season. You have all these questions that will get answered next season, so what the fuck was the point of this season? This is why I said this is a filler season. If a sole purpose for a whole season is just to set up the next one, that means you are just dragging this shit out and trying to milk the most amount of money possible. I remember I heard things that this was supposed to be the last season, but they changed their mind and got renewed for another one. It seems like the writers first wrote this as the end, but then got forced to make another one, so they just rushed and made this a filler season. Like truly, this was a half a season worth of content stretched out to fill a whole season. The main things that happened in this season were all in the last episode of the season. I want to say, I liked the last episode. The last episode was great, but it doesn't excuse the rest of the season not doing anything. It's like how now people are saying they want to see a second season of The Acolyte because they saw Darth Plagueis in the end. It was not a good show, and a second season shouldn't even be brought up as a joke. I remember how excited I was for this season, of how season 3 ended with Homelander killing a civilian. I thought this shit was about to go down, but that got swept under the carpet so fast. He just went to court and didn't get sentenced to anything, and it just went back to normal. The rest of the season, I barely remember. Off the top of my head, it just seems like it was one big episode because nothing stood out except for the last episode, which doesn't count because of course the last episode is gonna stand out. This is obviously, and I mean obviously the weakest season of The Boys, and it's not even close. I know people love The Boys, but what is with this glaze? Yes, it is possible for a good show to have a bad season. It's like people do not think it's impossible for this show to do anything wrong. And if you have any type of criticism, people just go like, well, you don't like The Boys, I mean. Overall, it was a very underwhelming season for The Boys.